The dawn light filtered through the soaring redwood trunks like liquid gold, dappling the forest floor in shifting patterns of light and shadow. Mist curled around fallen logs and clung to the ferns, lending the ancient woods an ethereal hush. To any casual observer, this was simply another spring morning in Northern California. But beneath the soft chorus of rustling leaves and bird calls lurked the tension of an unseen war. Lieutenant Mara Delgado pressed her forehead to the cool bark of a moss-covered log, heart hammering. She could taste the faint tang of pine resin on the breeze and hear, just beyond her earshot, the quiet hiss of alien scanners sweeping the undergrowth. Her unit, the Ghost Ravens, had trained for this moment for years, mastering nature's camouflage down to the molecular level. Now, as the Urakin Armada's reconnaissance team probed the forest, Mara knew every second counted. Across the clearing, a squad of Urakian soldiers moved in methodical formation. Their armor gleamed silver blue, each plate etched with alien glyphs that pulsed softly in low light. Integrated visors emitted scanning waves, infrared, ultraviolet, electromagnetic, seeking any sign of life. But all they detected was foliage, ferns, shrubs, and the occasional deer startled into flight by the strange mechanical hum. Mara flexed her fingers, feeling the responsive biogel coating her gloves shift to match the temperature of the log. Around her, the other ghost ravens lay scattered, bodies flattened against the moss, their fatigues a patchwork of forest hues. Private Sarah Chen, only 19 but already celebrated for her uncanny stillness, mirrored Mara's position 15 meters to the right, eyes closed in total concentration. "Infrared sweep in 10 seconds, the lead Urakin scout announced through a synthesized voice module. The rustle of his scanner's recalibration echoed like distant thunder. Mara counted the beats. 1, 2. She could hear her own pulse, a rhythmic drum in her ears. 3, 4. Suddenly, the scanner pivoted toward where Sarah lay. A low electronic chirp followed. The scout frowned, hand drifting toward his sidearm. Mara risked a glance. Sarah's chest was utterly still, her breath untraceable. The scout raised his weapon, jaw tensing. "Hold," came a whisper in Mara's earpiece, Captain Oliveira's voice, taut but calm. "Steady." The scout's finger hovered above the trigger. Mara held her breath. The scanner beeped again. Negative. No heat signature, no electromagnetic trace. The Urakian soldier cursed softly and lowered his weapon, stepping forward into the next patch of underbrush. As his bulky silhouette glided away, the squad continued its slow sweep down the ridge, entirely oblivious to the humans reclining mere meters behind them. Mara exhaled, allowing the tension in her shoulders to melt. Across her mind flashed the words she'd drilled into every recruit: blend, wait, strike when they least expect it. A twig snapped somewhere deeper in the woods. Whether from an alien boot or the panicked hoofbeat of another deer, Mara couldn't tell. But she grinned beneath her visor. The forest was alive with predators, each learning the other's strengths and weaknesses. Here, in the shaded cathedral of redwoods, humanity's greatest weapon was invisibility. And the Urakian? They had no idea what lurked in the shadows. 04 Mini High. The Jacquard drifted in silent orbit above Earth's atmosphere, its sleek hull reflecting the pale blue orb below. Within its cavernous command chamber, Admiral Uhura rose from her obsidian throne, ocular sensors narrowing as they studied the streaming data. Holographic projections swirled above the circular dais, heat maps, electromagnetic scans, and tactical overlays of the redwood insertion zones. Every readout bore the same impossible conclusion: zero human activity. Impossible. Uhura snapped, her voice resonating through the metallic chamber. Servitors hurried to adjust the displays, but the numbers held. My scouts should have detected entire brigades. These forests teem with life, flora and fauna alike, but no intelligent species. Explain. Dr. Vax, the Urakian chief xenobiologist, lowered her head, the luminescent filaments woven through her robes pulsing with subdued light. Admiral, our bioscanners are optimized for bipedal carbon-based life forms, with thermal and electromagnetic emissions above 40 Kelvin. But these humans appear to have developed adaptive cloaking fields, fine-grained biogel matrices that match ambient temperature and rebalance EM emissions. In simple terms, they hide from us in 3 dimensions. Uhura's multifaceted eyes flicked through the data streams. 3-dimensional cloaking? That's theoretical. No known species has achieved real-time modulation of heat, EM, and visual spectra simultaneously. She paused, recalling her own years of scientific training. How do they power such a system? The energy requirements alone should be prohibitive. There is evidence of nanoscale thermoelectric converters embedded within the gel, Vax replied. They harvest environmental heat differentials. The human suits, or perhaps their skin, regenerate the gel in response to neural commands, shifting patterns and spectra in fractions of a second. A murmur rose among the assembled officers. Captain Riss, commander of planetary operations, stepped forward. His spindly limbs trembled with a mix of frustration and curiosity. Admiral, if they're invisibly posting formations across the forests, our offensive could be ambushed at any moment. We must adapt. Uhura folded her arms. Precisely, we will adapt. With a gesture, she summoned a new projection, the radiance emitter design. Massive arrays of high-frequency photon cannons arranged in a perfect circle on the ground. Deploy these, she commanded. Emit ultraviolet and gamma-range pulses to penetrate their camouflage. If they hide in the visual, we'll expose them in the spectrum they cannot mask. Dr. Vax's tendrils quivered. Admiral, the radiant scan has never been field-tested on a living ecosystem. The feedback on vegetation and fauna is unpredictable. We risk severe ecological damage and collateral harm to the humans we claim to observe. Collateral damage is an acceptable cost of total victory, Uhura replied, her tone curt. Then, ever the strategist, she paused. But we are scientists as well as soldiers. Prepare a controlled prototype. Test it on drone-managed test sites first. I want detailed analysis of how the gel matrix responds to each wavelength. Below the command dais, technicians hurried to gather components: photon amplifiers, lattice resonators, quantum modulators. They worked in synchronized precision, each movement choreographed by centuries of Urakan engineering doctrine. Uhura turned back to the shimmering map of Earth. Once we decode their cloaking mechanism, we will replicate it, she murmured. Imagine an entire Urakan fleet rendered invisible to any foe. But first, we strip away their greatest asset. Captain Riss bowed and exited with his officers to oversee the radiance emitter deployment. Dr. Vax lingered, her biologist's curiosity warring with her loyalty. Admiral, should we consider a diplomatic overture? Understanding their technology could benefit both species. Uhura's gaze hardened. We will negotiate once they bow to us. Until then, science serves the sword. As the Ja-Corps pivoted to dispatch the radiance arrays somewhere far below, the Ghost Ravens held their breath, unseen, unheard, and preparing to turn the Urakan's next move into their own trap. In the quiet between stars, human ingenuity and alien ambition hurtled toward collision. The real lessons of this war, it seemed, were only just beginning. The morning mist had lifted by the time Captain Riss's team landed in the heart of the redwood clearing. The ground trembled slightly under the weight of alien machinery as massive tripod pylons, each nearly as tall as the surrounding giants, were positioned in a perfect circle. Between them, technicians in sleek exosuits unspooled coiled cables and snapped together photon emitter modules that glowed with an eerie violet light. Lieutenant Mara Delgado and her Ghost Ravens watched from a hidden vantage point 20 meters uphill, concealed by a thicket of ferns. Through her binocular visor, Mara could see the Urakan crew calibrating their instruments, cross-switching quantum resonators to tune the emitter frequency. A vivid line of ultraviolet dazzler arrays pointed inward toward the circle's center, where the radiance core awaited activation. Everything set, Dr. Vax's voice crackled through the Urakan comm channel. Emissions calibrated to 365 nanometers for deep UV, and a secondary burst at 10 MeV gamma. Her tone was clinical, tinged with excitement. Initiating dry run in 3, 2, 1. A ripple of power pulsed through the circle. For a heartbeat, nothing seemed to change. Then, as the emitters flared, the forest around them ignited in spectral brilliance. Emerald leaves glowed ghostly white, ferns shimmered in lavender halos, and every tendril of moss outlined itself in radiant relief. The Urakian cheered until the forest itself answered back. Unseen by alien eyes, microscopic organisms in the biogel on the Ghost Raven's uniforms reacted violently to the radiation. They multiplied and reconfigured in milliseconds, channeling the energy back along the fiber optic veins woven into the soldier's armor. In the clearing, the emitters began to flicker erratically, feedback winding tighter and tighter like a coiled spring. "Stabilize frequency," Captain Riss barked, but the controls stuttered in his gloved hands. Sparks flew from the nearest emitter as its cooling ducts overloaded. The ground beneath it quaked. Mara gave the signal. In unison, the Ghost Ravens activated their personal disruptors, compact, wrist-mounted devices that generated short, sharp EMP bursts. The pulses rippled through the clearing, jamming the emitter safeties and shutting down power conduits. One by one, the photon modules stuttered, then died. An alarm screamed. Urakian scientists scrambled, hands darting across touch panels and hollow projector interfaces. But the disruptors had done more than silence the emitters. They'd reversed the feedback loop. The latent energy stored in the biogel surged back into the crippled modules, which flared in an uncontrolled cascade of ultraviolet and gamma light. The forest exploded into an opalescent inferno. Underbrush and undergrowth, already stressed by the initial pulses, buckled and writhed in luminous agony. The Urakian technicians, caught in the blast radius, shielded their faces behind rippling force fields. Their exosuits shrieked as internal circuits overloaded. "Retreat, retreat!" Captain Riss roared, rallying his troops as he limped toward the edge of the circle. But before they could disperse, a shockwave of shimmering light rolled outward, engulfing the clearing and leaving the alien squad disoriented and blinking like newborns in daylight. Mara and her ravens descended into the chaos. They moved like shadows through the distorted light, silent, unseen, lethal. Private Chen's arrow hissed through the electric haze, striking a technician's control pod and severing the last power link to one emitter. Corporal Akoto neutralized a guard with a precision disruptor spike, collapsing his neural interface in a harmless but incapacitating jolt. At the center of the clearing, the Radiance emitter's master console lay exposed, its crystalline core cracked and inert. Captain Riss, stumbling over a scorched cable, met Mara's gaze across the wreckage. His jaw clenched. Even through the grime and sparks, his contempt was clear. "You were expecting this?" he spat, voice raw. Mara smiled, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Always be ready to adapt." Riss raised his hand to strike, but a net of carbon fiber wires, launched from Mara's concealed launcher, wrapped around his wrist, locking his weapon arm in place. As other Urakian soldiers tried to regroup, the Ghost Ravens closed in methodically, their disruptors humming softly, arrows nocked and ready. The Radiance experiment had been their crucible, and now, turned against its creators, it lay in smoldering ruin. The forest around them fell silent once more, returning to its ancient rhythms, as if the day's violent spectacle had been nothing more than a fleeting dream. But for the humans and aliens alike, the lessons learned in that clearing would echo far beyond the redwoods, reshaping the fate of both worlds. The forest was eerily still in the aftermath of the Radiance experiment's collapse. Smoke curled from the scorched emitter pylons, and drifting motes of ultraviolet dust glittered in the shafts of midday sun. The Urakian reconnaissance squad, battered, disarmed and shaken, had retreated to the perimeter, leaving only Captain Riss and a handful of elite guards scrambling to establish a defensive perimeter around the fractured Radiance core. Lieutenant Mara Delgado signaled her Ghost Ravens to fan out, encircling the alien stronghold. Their crossbows were charged with silent EMP-tipped bolts. Disruptor pistols were primed to stun, not kill. Humanity's orders were clear: capture intelligence, disable the enemy, but avoid unnecessary carnage. From among the ruins of the emitter, a heavyset figure emerged, Admiral Uhura herself, her armor dimmed and dented, but her posture unbowed. In her hand glowed the signature of the Urakan energy blade, its edge humming with lethal potential. Around her, the remaining guards activated energy shields forming an unbroken ring of shimmering force. Mara stepped forward, lowering her disruptor in a gesture of parley. "Admiral Uhura," she called. Her voice, carried through a frequency modulator, was calm but firm. "This conflict need not end in more destruction. Surrender the Radiance data and stand down. No one else must be harmed." Uhura's multifaceted eyes flicked across Mara's visor. "You dare negotiate with me, human?" Her voice was a blend of disdain and reluctant respect. "Your species has shown ingenuity, but I will not be outmatched on my own soil." With a curt gesture, Uhura signaled her guards to lower their shields, an obvious bluff. In that moment of hesitation, Mara activated the Ghost Raven's latest tactic, projection decoys. Holographic images of armed soldiers flickered among the trees, each indistinguishable from the real thing. The Urakian guards spun to confront the phantoms, their shields shifting to meet threats that vanished the moment they reached them. Uhura snarled in frustration, raising her energy blade to cleave through the nearest apparition. But the projection had done its job. Her attention was split, her defenses compromised. Mara seized the moment, sending a single disruptor bolt streaking through the haze. It struck the ground before the Admiral, emitting a localized EMP burst that overloaded the shields and sent the guards stumbling. "Now," Mara commanded. The Ghost Ravens moved in a fluid, silent wave. Sergeant Lee rendered 2 guards unconscious with precision stun darts. Corporal Akoto disabled the remaining force field generators with a well-placed disruptor spike. Within seconds, the alien defensive perimeter collapsed like a house of cards. Surrounded, Admiral Uhura lowered her blade, curiosity tempered with grudging admiration. "You humans fight with shadows and trickery," she said, voice echoing with wonder and irritation. "But tell me, why spare me?" Mara holstered her disruptor and stepped forward, offering a gauntleted hand. "Because knowledge is precious. We'll learn from your technology, and you from ours. There's more to gain in partnership than in slaughter." For a heartbeat, Uhura hesitated. Then, with a reluctant nod, she grasped Mara's hand. A silent accord passed between them as the sun filtered through the redwoods once more, illuminating a new path forward. Deep in the forest, the shattered Radiance core lay dormant. Around it, the first tentative steps toward a fragile truce and a shared future were already taking shape. A month after the skirmish in the Redwood clearing, the grand hall beneath Geneva's old citadel gleamed with polished marble and crystal chandeliers. Delegates from Earth's military coalition, soldiers in fatigues and diplomats in sharp suits, flanked the Urakian ambassadors, their silvery robes trailing across the mosaic floor. At the dais, Admiral Uhura and General Amina Rousseau of Earth raised their respective insignia-stamped pens above the Treaty of Coexistence, a document that would formally end hostilities and inaugurate a shared research initiative. Outside, journalists and spectators crowded the plaza, eager for a glimpse of the first interspecies handshake in human history. As Uhura's hand met Rousseau's, the crowd held its breath, then erupted in applause. For the first time, 2 civilizations bound by conflict now bound themselves by curiosity and cooperation. In the weeks that followed, the laboratories of the International Xenoscience Consortium buzzed with activity. Human biochemists studied samples of Urakian photonic crystals, ultralight structures that manipulated space with finesse, while alien xenobiologists examined the biogel matrices behind human camouflage. Under glass domes and behind containment fields, prototypes sprang to life. Suits that could switch from infrared stealth to high-visibility signaling at a thought, and architectural panels that dissolved into transparency under ultraviolet command. Deep sea. Research vessels tested the hybrid cloaking systems on Earth's abyssal plains, allowing marine biologists to observe creatures that had eluded submersibles for decades. In turn, Urakian starships trialed the adaptive skins on asteroid mining drones, collecting ore in hostile radiation belts without revealing their presence to rival fleets. Each success was celebrated with quiet wonder and the occasional friendly wager on whose technology would outperform the others. Back in the redwood forest, Mara Delgado and Captain Riss, once enemies on that scarred clearing, now led a joint field team. Side by side, human and alien scouts observed a family of deer, their heat signatures muted by experimental cloaks. When a curious fawn stepped too close, both soldiers murmured in admiration. Nature itself had inspired the greatest alliance either species had ever known. As dusk settled over Earth, the Eurakean homeworld shimmered faintly in the heavens. Distant promise of journeys yet to come. Humanity had proven that brilliance often lies in unpredictability, and the Urakan had learned that conquest without understanding is an empty victory. In the quiet hum of laboratories, on the decks of starbound vessels and beneath the ancient redwoods, a new chapter of shared destiny was just beginning.